Pakistan terrorists continue to target Jammu and Kashmir. Each attack more brazen than the last. Four bravehearts killed in a gunfight in Doda. Jaish proxy claims responsibility. Five attacks in a month in Jammu. Terror bleeds Jammu and Kashmir. Top focus on 5 Live.
It is clear that we are at war in the Jammu region, viewer. Last night's encounter that left 4 army men dead in what was almost definitely an ambush trap is the latest of 7 attacks where Pakistan-trained terrorists squeezed and weakened in the Kashmir Valley have turned their focus on the less guarded Jammu in order to continue spilling Indian blood. The 4 young men were from the Rashtra Rifles, whose faces you will see momentarily on your screens today and social media. They are the latest blips on a radar of war that has been declared on India. Make no mistake. I know what you're feeling, viewer, when you see these unspeakably sad images of Captain Brijesh Thapa and Captain Brijesh Thapa's mother, Neelima, weeping today next to her son's picture. Her husband is an army man. His father was an army man, and they've just lost their army man's son, all of 27 years old. You're feeling that familiar mix of fury, helplessness, and a painful need for someone to either explain how India can be so effortlessly and serially attacked in this manner. And you're waiting for someone to tell you why it doesn't look like anything is being done about it. The occasions where India has hit back with big, visible, punitive measures in Uri and Balakot were when single attacks had resulted in the deaths of between 20 and 40 personnel. In the last few months, across a handful of attacks, the army has lost 15 men to attacks, concentrated in the Jammu region, basically the swath of territory south of the Pir Panjal range, separated from the Kashmir Valley. This is a deeply emotional story that is inextricable from the stories of loss and grief. So it's difficult to be clinical about this. Believe me, I've spent my career having to set feelings aside and ask the right questions, which is why I will do so today as well, in the name of Neelima Thapa and the mothers of the other 3 army men who were lost in Doda. My first question: does the government have a clear strategy on how to deal with this Jammu-focused escalation of terror? Does the strategy involve simply the nuts and bolts of operations, or will it involve an overarching change in operational philosophy not ventured into thus far in the Jammu division? Does the government know that each terror attack damages the idea of deterrence projected from the cross-border strikes that India has mounted in order to warn Pakistan? Does the government plan to respond in some big measure before the planned attacks in Jammu and Kashmir? Does the army need a free hand to evolve new rules of engagement in Jammu, taking lessons from Kashmir operations? Has India's anti-infiltration strategy over 20 years failed if most terror is by infiltrating groups? How can the government and army justify infiltrations despite huge leaps in anti-infiltration technology? Does the sheer length of the line of control and international border justify infiltrations continuing? Does the government need to recalibrate its response matrix that's currently being aggressively tested on nearly a daily basis by Pakistani terror groups? Can the narrative that Indian army units are sitting ducks be allowed to grow roots and help fuel the Pakistan terror recruitment machine across the LCN border? Today it's Brijesh, Rajesh, Bijendra and Ajay. Tomorrow it will be other names. India owes their families answers today with action. Captain Brijesh Thapa killed in action in the Doda encounter. Sepoy Bijendra killed in action in the Doda encounter. Sepoy Ajay, killed in action in the Doda encounter. Nayak D. Rajesh, killed in action in the Doda encounter. Yet another terror attack in Jammu division where 4 army braves lost their lives. The encounter took place when the troops of the 10 Rashtriya Rifles and the Special Operations Group of the J&K Police launched a joint cordon and search operation 55 kilometers from Doda town in the Desa forest belt.
This entire stretch is surrounded by dense forests, mountains, so it becomes very difficult for security forces to carry out counter-terror operation in areas like these. Unfortunately, on most occasions in the recent past, the Pakistani terrorists who have carried out these dastardly terror attacks have managed to escape from the terror attack spots. That is why this time around, the security forces want to ensure that these coward Pakistani terrorists don't escape and they are neutralized as soon as possible.
Among the 4 army men killed in action was an officer, just 27 years old, who led his brave troops in chasing the fleeing terrorists in the challenging, thickly forested terrain. Captain Brajesh Thapa joined the army just 5 years ago. His shattered, grieving parents remembered their brave son and expressed today how proud they are of him.
गर्व तो अभी हो गया ही, क्योंकि नेचुरली उसने अपने देश के लिए अपने जान दे रखा है ना, तो हो गए। बट हमारा तो काफ़ी बड़ा लॉस भी हो गया वो, तो वो हमको अभी टाइम लगेगा थोड़ा सा अंडरस्टैंड करना। अभी भी हमको ऐसे लग रहा है कि पता नहीं अभी क्या हो रहा है वो,
क्योंकि उसका इंटरेस्ट छोटे से फौज में और देश के लिए लड़ना था, तो उन्होंने अपना कभी वो ऐसे डरे नहीं, कभी वो झुके नहीं, और हमेशा जो है वो जो भी काम था वो अपना ठीक-ठाक करता था और जो भी बोला वो सही करता था.
Officials said the gun battle began after a cordon and search operation was launched in the Desa forest area around 7:45 p.m. on Monday.
Based on that specific input, a massive anti-terror operation was launched by the security forces. Indian Army and Special Operations Group of Jammu and Kashmir Police worked together, and this counter-terror operation was launched at about 7 p.m. last evening. At about 9 p.m., the security forces were successful in establishing a contact with the terrorists who were hiding in the upper reaches. Unfortunately, in the gunfight, 4 of our brave hearts sustained serious injuries, and in the morning we got this tragic news, we got this unfortunate news that all 4 of them attained Veer Gati. They made the supreme sacrifice of their lives for the nation.
Amidst the spate of terror attacks in Jammu and Kashmir's top cop, the DGP, blamed regional parties for helping Pakistan's sinister terror agenda.
Pakistan successfully came to infiltrate all important aspects of our civil society. Thanks to the regional so-called mainstream politics in the valley, there is overwhelming evidence to show that many had honed the art of running with the hare and hunting with the hound to a near science that left both the common men and the security men bewildered, frightened and confused.
Former J&K Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti has demanded the DGP's resignation, terming him a political tool.
By now, the head should have rolled. The DG should have been sacked by now. Because जो इस वक्त हो रहा है, पिछले 32 months में almost 50 soldiers have lost their lives. Nobody is being held accountable.
In the last month, Jammu alone has witnessed 5 terror attacks, with Jawans dying in the line of action. In 2024 alone, 27 terrorists and 15 security personnel have been killed in action. With Sunil Ji Bhatt in Doda, Jammu and Kashmir, Bureau Report, India Today. And we're very privileged today to be joined live by General NC Vij, former Chief of the Army Staff. He's also an author, and his brand new book, which couldn't be more timely, is just out. It's a book called Alone in the Ring. It's about decision making in critical times. General NC Vij, for those who may not be familiar, especially among our younger audience, was the army chief who conceptualized and built India's most important anti-infiltration measure, the famous fence that goes right along the entire line of control. He did that while he was the army chief during 2003 to 2005. General Vij has also served and commanded across many different levels in Jammu and Kashmir. General Vij, always a privilege, sir. Thank you very much for your time. It's good to see your book, which will add, in great measure to India's understanding of the military and how critical decisions are being made. And I look forward to reading it, and I recommend it to all of our viewers. General Vij, I'd like to start with, with something that you cover in your book, but also pegged on what we're seeing right now, General, happening in Jammu. There appears to be a concerted and very deliberate attempt to escalate the levels of violence south of the Pir Panjal. As a former Chief of the Army Staff, General, how do you assess this? How do you read this, sir?
Shiv, thank you very much, and good evening to you.
Good evening.
For having me on your show. You see, Pakistan's main effort in the proxy war has been to keep J&K in a state of disturbance. And now that the elections are approaching and they are definite about it, because both the Supreme Court has given that decision and the government has also announced, and the Prime Minister during his recent visit to Kashmir gave the indication that the statehood will be restored and the election will be held. They are now trying their very best. Unfortunately, what has happened is that we also, because seeing the condition which was there, perhaps have done some thinning out of troops from the south of Pir Panjal. And that has perhaps created a little disturbance in the insurgency grade. And perhaps the army would have already started the measures to create that balance again so that they are in a position to hold this thing. But this is a game which goes on. Sometimes you find that you're on the receiving end and sometimes they are the ones. So, but yes, it is a matter of concern and we will have to take that into account.
How challenging will it be to, recalibrate things for Jammu, sir? Because traditionally, as we've seen, terrorist violence has been focused on South Kashmir, the Kashmir Valley, etc. How challenging will it be to sort of recalibrate things in Jammu where, such levels of violence have never been seen before, sir?
Yeah, because in Jammu, it's not that they were being nice towards the people in Jammu.
Yeah.
It is just because the army had controlled it and so had the police in conjunction with each other. It will be possible, and I don't see any difficulty when the troops are brought in back. Because some troops have been moved out from here to Ladakh. So that had to be done because the number is the same. So I don't think it will take much time. And we should be able to restore the status in this area.
It's interesting, General Vij, how your book, the subheader of your book's title is Decision Making in Critical Times. And that goes to the heart of what will actually happen now with the army leadership and the government leadership. Isn't it a difficult decision? You've been in the hot seat in situations like this, post-Kargil, Operation Parakram, etc. As a former army chief, this whole challenge of priorities, you've had to pull out troops from the Jammu area, send them to the line of actual control. Now you're facing a challenge in Jammu, so you may have to bring some back. How difficult are these decisions, sir?
Well, these decisions are always difficult, but not all that difficult that you can be overawed by them. You can always make readjustments.
Yeah.
And there are many troops which are in the peace station. Yes, they will have to be moved out little earlier. So you can manage that. I don't see any great difficulty in a situation of this kind.
General, see, as civilians, as journalists, sometimes the numbers seem daunting. The numbers seem disturbing. 7 attacks in the last month and a half. 15 army personnel, killed in action, etc. And not to say that these are not taken extremely seriously by the army, but obviously the army has a much more professional approach in how to respond to such things. So, while in the civilian sphere, the public call is when will we react, when will we respond, kab aayega, etc. What would the mood be within the army right now, sir? How difficult is it to look at things in a very measured, clinical way before responding?
No, they would be already doing it, I'm sure. Actually, I'm sure they would have started quite a few days back and taken decisions as to what they should be doing. Otherwise, it is too late. We must be already in a mood to react and in a position to react. And the decisions to move troops from where and already should have been taken by now.
But, because, sir, you know, we live in a time when the Uri surgical strikes, the air strikes in Balakot, you know, are being seen as, sort of benchmarks as far as Indian response is concerned. But as someone who's covered defense for a long time, and also, by the way, I began my career as a defense journalist when you were the chief of the army staff, sir. We are aware that these things are much more complicated than that. But would those kinds of high-level responses be part of the possible matrix of responses by the Indian government at this time? We know that in the past, between 20 and 40 soldiers had been, killed in those terror attacks, necessitating large-scale reactions. What about now, sir?
I don't think we have reached that kind of a state, or we are going to reach that at all. I don't see it as that serious. Earlier also, since you mentioned about the period of 2002, 2004 and all that.
Yes.
At that time also a lot of disturbance was there, and a number of casualties were much, much higher, and number of infiltration was much higher. Now it has been brought much under control, and we should be able to get hold of these things.
Yes.
I don't think there is a requirement for reaction of the kind of Balakot and all that. But that goes even for the government to decide. But I don't feel that that is the necessity at this stage.
General Vij, one of the most important anti-infiltration measures was taken. It was conceptualized by you personally and executed by, under your leadership of the army between 2003 and 2005. And that was, of course, the fence along the line of control, which has played a very important role, like you rightly said, in bringing down infiltration and being a real barrier, a physical barrier as far as, the continuing infiltration is concerned. But isn't it also true now, sir, that much more needs to be done? It's been 2 decades since the anti-infiltration fence was built. India needs to get more technology involved to monitor infiltrations. There are drones, there is AI, there are so many other things. I'm not saying things have not been done, but there is a great potential for use of technology in this sphere, sir.
Yes, there's a lot of merit in what you're saying. But firstly, I must correct the impression that fence is an obstacle. Fence was never meant to be an obstacle. It was to be a complete system of anti-infiltration. Right. Because fence by itself, all that you were looking for was a delay of 5 to 10 minutes at that particular position. And it was surrounded by the troops. There were platoon headquarters, company headquarters around it. And there was a good communication system. There were obstacle systems ahead of this. Right now, the army is already in the process of improving the fence. After all, nothing can be static and stagnant in life. There has to move on. And as you have mentioned, there are drones, there are better quality of booby traps, better quality of anti-infiltration system which can be put in front of the fence. So all that is being done. As a matter of fact, there are some places where there's a double layer of fence which has been put. But the troops have to be there. Troops have also to guard it. So that when a man stops, when the infiltrator stops, or is held up at the fence for a couple of minutes, that is the time he is eliminated. That is the entire theory behind it. The manpower still remains very important.
Very, 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 very true. That's something that we need to look at even more closely. But, last couple of questions, General Vij, which is that, elections have been announced, not been announced, but they're scheduled to take place sometime in September, this year. Some of your predecessors and other experts have opined on this issue, saying that with this kind of level of, attacks taking place in Jammu, perhaps it's not the right time for elections. Where do you stand on that, sir? Because that adds even more pressure on the security forces.
Well, Shiv, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think this is the level where you can even think of stopping the election. Election, we must go ahead. There's no requirement to stop the election, and we will be able to do it successfully. I've seen it being held under much more difficult circumstances. This particular situation is not that bad. It is just that on particular day you may find it looking a little more grim than the normal.
Yeah.
The elections have been held in much more difficult circumstances. And I'm sure by the time the elections come, we would have things much under control.
Your words
are before that.
Your words are going to serve as a great deal of solace, General, for those who are are very anxious at this time over whether the situation will be conducive for the conduct of elections. So you're saying that between now and September, some measures will be taken. You're confident that things must be already rolling within the system to make sure that this situation is handled, as aggressively as possible. That's what you're saying, General.
Yes, yes, it will be done. It will be done. I'm very sure of that. It is nowhere near the situation where you should be that worried that we have to withhold the election. I don't think so.
Okay, and is there any concern, sir, with the necessity for redeployment of troops, since troops had been pulled out from Jammu, sent to the line of actual control? China continues to be a factor, sir. China is a big player right on our doorstep in eastern Ladakh as well. How do you read that situation? It's been 4 years, since that standoff has continued. It's kind of frozen now. Nothing is actually happening, but they haven't moved away from there. There have been some minor disengagements, etc. But the larger threat from China remains in that area, sir.
Yes, you are very right. But those troops are not the one which will be picked up for being moved back to JNK. As I said, if the troops have to be moved, which will be perhaps required, and the army would be already thinking about it, these will be from the peace stations, which are already in their peace tenure. Yes, their tenure will be cut short by 6 months, 8 months, or whatever it is. But that is the requirement of the day, and the army doesn't shy away from things. They don't think of these peace tenures and all that too much about it. If the need is there, they will be there, and nobody would be cribbing about it.
General Vij, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for speaking to India today. And once again, Alone in the Ring by General Vij, one of our visionary army chiefs, is out now. Congratulations on your book, and I look forward to getting into the depths of some of the big points you raise. Good to have you on a day like this. I wish it was on a day with less loss or no losses at all. But today, as we pay tribute to these soldiers, young soldiers, and I know how many wreath-laying ceremonies you have attended in your entire career, in the Indian Army. These are days of sorrow and grief for the families and for the units themselves. So as we pay tribute, it was important for us to bring General Vij on because his word carries gravitas and wisdom, because these are things that we never want to see happen again. So I thank you, General Vij, for being with me on the show.
Thank you, and we bow our heads to these bravehearts.
Thank you, sir.
They always make great sacrifice.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, sir. Now remember, our viewers, many would not be completely familiar with the chain of command and who's in charge. A question about where the buck stops, who's in charge, who's doing what as far as security in Jammu is concerned. Let's just take you through the chain of who's in charge. We've already asked the questions. Ajit Doval is the National Security Advisor. He's based in Delhi. His responsibility is national security issues. He reports directly to Prime Minister Modi. Manoj Sinha is the Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir. His responsibility is political head of Jammu and Kashmir until there are elections. He is based in Srinagar, and he's just received more powers administratively speaking. General Upendra Dwivedi is the new Chief of the Army Staff. He has spent a couple of years as the Northern Commander, so he has experience in Jammu and Kashmir, which is very valuable. His responsibility obviously is the leadership of the army. He's based in Delhi. Lieutenant General Suchindra Kumar is the Army Commander, Northern Command, called the General Officer Commanding in Chief of the Northern Command. His responsibility within the army is to look after Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. He is based in Udhampur, JNK. And then finally, Lieutenant General Naveen Sachdeva. He's the General Officer Commanding of the 16 Corps, that's the White Knight Corps, based in, which has the responsibility of the entire Jammu division where these attacks have been happening. His location is in Nagrota in Jammu and Kashmir. So these are the prime players in India's brave security machine that will now need to respond for all these attacks.